Good morning, everyone. I'm Taylor Finger, Mark Kakich, Randy Johnson. We're here for the Hyde episode at Milford Hills, Wisconsin's premier shooting facility. And again, we have Randy Johnson with the Wisconsin DNR here today. He's our large carnivore specialist.
Welcome.
And we're going to be covering in this episode mainly bear, really getting into, how it is that we in the state manage bear, what kind of plans we've put together to ensure that we're doing it responsibly. And again, how that ultimately affects both people and hunters.
Wildlife Federation's The Hyde.
So, again, Randy,
Hold it. First of all, my wife didn't get a bear this.
It's got to be Randy's fault.
Mine didn't either, as it turns out.
Well, just because it was 92 degrees outside probably didn't have anything to do with it. But
No.
Right, yeah, all the acorns in the world were everywhere. But yeah, absolutely. Randy, just give us a rundown exactly what it is for your large carnivore position.
Sure, yeah. So thanks for the invite to be here. Randy Johnson, large carnivore specialist, based up in Rhinelander. So in the position, I'm focused on wildlife management, overseeing our bear program, our wolf program, and our cougar program. So what does that mean? Well, it's hunting seasons, management plans, working with the public, collaborating with different agencies and partner groups, and a lot of outreach too. Especially with these species, they generate all kinds of emotions, opinions, impacts, and it's really important that we, have a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, we had an episode with Brad Cooley, the nuisance specialist, and yeah, we discussed bears, and it's one of those ones. It doesn't matter if it's a 80-pound bear or a 300-pound bear. Bears are big. It doesn't. You see bears one on your porch, everyone's going to give you a call about it. So I imagine the amount of phone calls that you guys get is got to be pretty significant.
Yeah, it's one bear popping up in a southern Wisconsin someplace can generate a week's worth of work responding to it. But that's also the cool part of it.
Right?
Yeah, it is. Yes. Yes, we're seeing that more and more. Individual bears dispersing out into different parts of the state, and lots of reasons behind that, which we can get into.
let's start off with management plans,
Sure.
right? I think, the key and basis for every, main species is the management plan.
Right, and it's pretty recent, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So the department led and basically an update. We did have a previous bear management plan from I think the 80s, largely obsolete. But in 2019, the new plan was finally approved by the Natural Resources Board, and it covers a lot of different areas of bears and bear management. It covers the biology, the history of management, why we do some of the things we do, and then obviously also outlines what the next steps look like, what the future looks like. So what does the hunting season look like? What are those considerations? Things like management zones, the conflict program, et cetera. So pretty all-encompassing document. And like you said, it's really important that helps us, guide our policies.
Right, a one-stop shop essentially for anybody that has a question of, okay, what's our justification for X? What's our justification
First place
for Y?
to look is that management plan.
Absolutely.
And they're fairly easy to follow, right? Because they're broken down by topic. So there's a lot of people from the state that I'm sure you get to direct to take a look at the management plan. And even someone that, is maybe not in tune with the bear topics of today can go to that management plan and pick out the topic they wanted to ask.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. They're as much a communication and education and outreach tool as they are an actual policy document.
I know there was a lot of discussion through the management plan. I think, was it like the size of zones or locations of zones and the amount of permits? And again, there's also some background on how we determine what those permits and that permit allocation are by zones, if you want to give people kind of a rundown exactly how that works.
Yeah, so we have we previously had 4 management zones. We've gone to 6, and those management zones essentially exist to help us fine tune management across different regions, reflecting bear numbers and different, considerations. Some areas are obviously more agricultural, some are more forest and public land, and so the considerations change depending on where you're at. And that's where the zones ultimately reflect.
So when you guys redid the management plan, what, like you said, it was from the one that you replaced was from the late 80s. What were some of the significant changes that you as a biologist said, holy cow, what a big change from where we were back then to where we are now?
I think the biggest change is at least on the ground, how many bears we have, where those bears are, the public perception around bears, and just the extent of really the hunting season that we have. We are, the state of Wisconsin is a national leader in bear hunting. When you talk about Boone and Crockett records for the size of bears, we're number one by a long shot. When you talk about the number of bears harvested in a given year, we're often number one.
Not your wife.
yeah, I'm rubbing it in now.
Jennifer?
But it is really impressive that we can have this extensive of a hunting season and also, a healthy, widespread growing in many places bear population. I think that speaks to, the value of wildlife management, the science behind it, and the hunters that participate. They share the data back with us. It comes full circle.
Bear hunting in Wisconsin today, like you said, is significantly different than it was in the 80s. And a large piece of that is because of hunter involvement and hunter dedication to the resource and to the science behind the resource. Right now, not everybody's happy. Not everybody gets a tag as fast as they want. We're going to talk about that on a different episode. But I think, bears in Wisconsin are another topic that hunters can champion behind and say, you know what, we had a hand in significantly increasing but strengthening the population in the state overall.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not only do we use harvest in different areas of the state to try to reduce some of the conflicts that we see, particularly with agricultural conflicts, but every bear that's harvested by law has to be registered with the department, right? So we get that hunter registration data. In addition, hunters have to extract a premolar tooth, and two of them right now, send those teeth in. And so basically that harvest data is the data that we use to monitor that population.
And for those out there, we pull the tooth for aging, correct? Yeah, and then that specifically gets at knowing, how old our population is, what, were we harvesting young, were we harvesting old, and gives you just, better management tools to say, hey, do we need to increase permit allocation here or not, just based on what we're seeing in
it all goes into the models, and we see really high compliance with those things. Hunters are excited to do those things.
Right.
They want to participate.
Yeah, I think science is now, especially with, as many people that are on the computer and using YouTube, I think it would be a great episode is how to extract that tooth, to show exactly how you look at the age of a deer, age of a bear, right? But, how accurate is it? That's my question. If I would have been able to help my wife pull that tooth out, but I didn't,
what tooth?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
How accurate is that when you look at age?
That's a good question. So black bear is actually one of the most accurate, and it's because they have a very clear hibernation period.
Okay.
Right. So what they're doing is they're pulling that tooth and they're slicing the root of that tooth, and it is analogous to tree growth rings. There's a very clear growth ring that's established. And because they go through hibernation, it's more clear than something like canines or deer, whatever that's, annually out there. Those are still accurate too, but black bear is the top of that list.
I can't wait to do that episode in maybe 11 or 12 years, I guess.
Zone C.
There you go. But I think that the public really enjoys this type of stuff. And we talked with Brad similarly, is that there's a lot of rumors that go around of, hey, I talked to a friend of a friend of a friend, and this is what's going on, or this is what the DNR is doing. So having you here today to kind of go over what it is that, we are doing from a management perspective to try to handle this is awesome. And again, I know similar to myself, it's easy for you to, call you up, give you a phone call.
Please do.
That's having those discussions.
And, one thing we didn't touch on is the involvement of stakeholder groups. So, when the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation participates in a management plan, we represent numerous additional stakeholder groups under our umbrella, but they also come individually, Wisconsin bull hunters, right? Wisconsin bear hunters, right? And all these folks sit down at a table with the department and other agency folks and create this management plan.
Tribal interaction. It's a big one. Yeah,
absolutely.
Farm groups, Farm Bureau.
Right. Farm Bureau. And, so these are collective agreements, and that you use the term agreement a little bit loosely because not everybody gets 100% what they believe in or what they think should be. But our management plans, looking at them across the country compared to other places, our management plans are solid, and I hope that every major species at some point, has a management plan. I know that it's I don't want to say impossible, but it is a daunting task to create one, because how long does it take you to create that management plan?
2 to 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't even guess how many man hours, and stakeholder group volunteer hours are put into that.
It depends on the species. We're talking bear, you're talking wolf, you're talking elk, these high profile species that people really are passionate about one way or another, is that, that just really puts a microscope on what it is that we do. And like you said, to say that we are number one in Boone and Crockett, and we have a robust bear population that we just continue to see expanding. And it goes to that we're doing something right.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, tons of public involvement in the development of the plans, and then tons of continuous public involvement and partner groups and tribes, in the implementation phase. It's not a write it up, put it on the shelf, and it's done. It's write it up. Okay, let's do it now.
Right. And every year or every year and a half ish, you review where you're at, and you kind of grade yourself, judge, what do I need to tweak in this management plan? I mean, we go through that on the waterfall side, yearly. We review the plan and where we need to pick up for next year, where we did really well at. I think those are things that potentially didn't get done in years past because there was a lot of stuff going on, right? Yeah. And now, we have to be a little bit more focused and responsible to, the public, to the stakeholder groups, and we use the stakeholder groups to help push our message, and the department message on the specific topic.
And that's, again, I think where we highlight is that you have the ability to reach out to Randy and have those phone calls. Don't just throw your hands up in the air and say, well, this is the management plan. We can't do anything until the next 10 years.
No, they're built to be adaptive. They're built to be responsive. And so the only way you can get involved in that is by reaching out, whether that's reaching out to me directly or join the committee meetings, Congress. I mean, you name it, there's a ton of different avenues to do it.
They're the boots on the ground too. That's always one of those ones, is having, if we get feedback from people, whether, it's from a guy that's been doing it for 50 years or, a really avid person this is his first year and doesn't necessarily understand it, getting those different perspectives really inform what it is, one, that we have to potentially make changes to, or two, of how to educate and inform the public on what it is that needs to be done.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite, frankly, it's one of the favorite parts of my job, is hearing from the hunters and those that are out there, the good and the bad. Right. Because that's it can show where we're doing well or not so well, and go from there.
That's the good thing about having stakeholder groups. There's usually a liaison in many cases to the department or to an agency staff, and having and building those relationships, because at times they get bumpy, they get rough, and the whole idea is you don't have to agree on everything, but you need to agree on the outcome of the topic, right? And that comes with negotiating and knowing that, I'm going to win some battles, I'm going to lose some battles, but overall, that plan is what's best for the resource, right? And that's the key, is what's best for the resource, right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And these committees I keep talking about, I should mention the Bear Advisory Committees, similar to some of our other species advisory committees. But that is a group that the department brings together specifically with these different categories of stakeholders and ag folks, hunting folks, the tribal representation.
Tens of thousands of citizens, whether it's, like you said, it's the ag folks, it's the hunters,
one to two meetings a year. It's a very organized process, if you will. To get.
So how do they get you? How do they get a hold of Randy?
Look me up. Email, phone. I keep my phone on me all the time. I hope folks reach out. We're easy to find.
Yeah, and you're very responsive, so I appreciate that.
Try to be. Yep.
All right. Well, again, thanks everyone for this episode of The Hide. Thanks again to Mark. Thanks, Randy. Appreciate you making the trip down here. Thanks to Chase and Grit Production for putting this bad boy together. And again, thank you to Milford Hills, the premier shooting facility in Wisconsin, for allowing us this awesome venue to do this. So again, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much.